afternoon, all, and welcome to this morning's session. This morning's session is on using AI for productivity for college faculty and staff. I have the wonderful opportunity to introduce Cynthia Kramer and Jessica Rodriguez. Jessica, you're new with us, correct?
This is my first year, yeah.
This is your first year. Great. Welcome to JJC. And I'm gonna have you
Hand
take
it up.
away.
All right. So I'm Cynthia Kramer. This is Jessa. We both work at the library. And what we want to talk about is we're going to do an overview of different ways that you can use AI for productivity in your job, in your personal life, in doing coursework as well, our course design. All right, we're going to skip our poll. So we're going to talk about AI tools like Microsoft Copilot, which is through the college. The college has its own subscription to Copilot, essentially. Google Gemini, ChatGPT, Elicit, and Research Rabbit. We're going to talk about using AI-driven methods for enhancing and creating content. And hopefully we'll have a little bit of practice time for you to explore some of the things that we suggested. All right, so I want to talk about Copilot because that is promoted by the college. So they use ChatGPT 4, same as you would for the pay version. You log in with your JJC username and account. You can see I've got the little protected symbol. It's called Copilot. And in ours, the data is protected, as in nothing that you send there will be used to train the LLM, the large language model, right? So that is not the case in all AIs, that it is protected. Yeah.
That's just if you use the licensing.
Right, just if you log in. Correct. Correct.
You won't see that protected sign.
The protected lets you know that you're in like a enterprise mode. All right, so Copilot has its own little slide and so different kinds of things that you can ask it to do. You can do summaries, analysis, tables. You can make tables of information. You can summarize tables. You can do some math. You can create content. You create content for social media posts, content for APUs, other types of reports, and you can create images. You can create images that are essentially generated by AI and copyright free. So you can use those without any concern. All right, and then again, we just wanted to promote Copilot as that's the one that the college has. They do use, again, that ChatGPT 4, which again, you'd have to pay for. It does cite its sources, so you can go back and see where the information comes from, which is helpful to determine if it was hallucinating or not. There's no knowledge cutoff, so it's up-to-date answers, and I believe it searches the web as well as a large language model. And again, it's at that enterprise level, so your data is protected. So we would recommend this for like meeting notes or something where you have people's names. Okay, but one thing I do want to let you know is since it doesn't save history, it's harder to use in AI. You can use these things called personas, which is you can say act like a nutritionist, act like a 9-year-old. Because it doesn't save your history, you can't really do the personas as well on Copilot in the protected mode. And you can't build prompts on each other. It doesn't really remember your prompts. All right, so then we're going to talk a little bit about Gemini. So up until like a week and a half ago, this was called Google Bard. It does require a Google account. It does remember your history and is not private. So just keep that in mind. And then I went ahead and asked Gemini to create this chart for me. So kind of comparing Gemini, ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot. Okay, and you can see that they use different models, right? So Google or Gemini uses the Gemini language model, large language model. OpenAI uses GPT-4, depending on what you're paying, 3.5 or 4. And remember, with 3.5, there is that cutoff date. So if you can't get information past
Like 6 months ago. something
6
like
months,
that.
there's a bit of a delay. And then Microsoft is the co-pilot, no cutoff date. And so for me, what I've noticed is that you can find that some are better for different tasks. So Google Gemini, you also can see the sources. So that can be good for fact checking, research, some technical inquiries. I'd say ChatGPT and Microsoft Copilot are really good with programming and code. So that's another area. It may be a little more of a niche area, but if you're into programming or anything like that, it's very useful. ChatGPT does very well with creative writing, content creation, formatting text, formatting different things. So what you're going to learn is that for different things that you want to do, you may prefer a different either Gemini or Chat or Microsoft Copilot, depending on the task. So some things to consider is that AI can create false information. So that's called hallucinating. It can make up entire article citations. As a librarian, we find this scary and hilarious at the same time. Like they'll give a full website, dates, authors, everything.
Citation.
And you can try your prompt in multiple tools. So you can try it in Copilot and try it in Gemini and see which output fits better for you. And then, for example, you may prefer one over the other. I prefer Gemini when making tables or charts. It seems to make really nice charts for me. So now I'm going to talk about some examples. All right, so I'm going to tell you, so we have different categories. So our first category for anybody that's faculty here is teaching. So what you can do is you can customize your instructional tools. You can create that persona and say, create this for a beginning English student or something like that. You can feed in an assignment and create rubrics. You can create templates for lesson plans and assignments, as well as like flashcards, learning assessment prompts, anything that you need help brainstorming. It's amazing what kind of content it'll spit out. You can also summarize content. So if you want to do like a welcome message in your Canvas course, you can also use it for instructional design. So course evaluation plans, and you could use it to change citation styles too. I mean, it's completely versatile, right, in what it can do. But these are just some of the things that you could do teaching wise. So for me, I teach a cataloging course that I'll be handing off to Jessa. But all I asked it for was a rubric for grading an original mark assignment with 50 total points. And it gave me a really good rubric. It listed all those, it knew what all the sections of a mark field were, gave me some point values, and I could change what was in here, but it gave me a great starting point. So that's one example that I used. In the library, we did another comparison study of staff hours. So again, this was in Gemini again, and I had a table with librarian hours and staff hours, and for each of our peer institutions. And I asked for a comparison, a ratio of that to total hours per each institution, and it did it correctly and did the math correctly. I was really excited because it went in really, it just was really quick. I was glad, I of course, double checked it, right? Because that's what you do. All right, so again, we're librarians. There's additional tools that Jess will talk about that are specifically for research, but you can use it to do literature reviews, summarize long content. So if you put a research article into it, you can get a summary like an abstract and decide if it's something you want to do. If you're doing, like for students, if they're doing topic research, it can help with keywords or expanding your search, give you more ideas. And it's very powerful in translating. Jessa will talk about that a lot, but it can translate into other languages. It can translate into other dialects too. So it's really pretty powerful in that sense. All right, for those of you that are staff members, for your work and organization. So these are some things that you can do. So you can analyze and interpret data. Again, I did that with my ratio study. find patterns and trends. We fed in several syllabi and tried to figure out where they overlapped when we were trying to evaluate our program. You can use it to write letters. You can use it to help with letters of recommendation, notary resignation, IEP requested school, accommodation, anything you can think of, it helps with letters. It'll check for tone. So you can say, can you make sure this is a positive or professional tone? It'll proofread. You can do newsletters and copywriting. So let's say you need a shorter blurb to put either on your website, newsletter, or some sort of post. You can use it for brainstorming. So you put in whatever you need and they'll spit a list out. I tried to use it to name, remember they did a contest to name the newsletter? I wanted to win, so I put in as many of the Wolves ones that I could think of. Again, summarizing documents, creating social media, and then project management. This one is really nice. I used it. I think that's coming up here. Well, so like here's one. This is for my APU. Can you summarize this chart and add some reason why the library monitors study room usage? Okay. So I know why we use study room usage, but it wasn't really that exciting, right? So I asked for a list and it gave me an excellent list that I could pick from. So it saves me time. That's how I think about it. This is our APU. I wanted a rewrite of this program for the LTA program, and it gave me a nice rewrite as well. So you can see I'm pretty busy. I'm teaching, I'm giving presentations, and for things like APUs, whatever I can do to streamline the process is very helpful. And then rewrite a process. So I'm in charge of cataloging and collection management. So I had a collection management process for librarians and staff, and I went ahead and fed it in there and had it make it into like a peppy email, right? Be like, hey guys, it's time to do our spring collection management, yay! And so, you know, I didn't feel like writing that, but ChatGPT had no problem making it peppy and exciting. Actually, I'm a little bit of a fan of Gemini, I guess, is what's coming out of this, but I've used them all. Now I'm going to hand it over to Jess.
Time for the very bright slides. Okay. So it's a good tool for researching. And one way that I like to use it is to help me pick keywords. You know, keyword selection is a big part of starting a research project. Like what exactly am I looking for? What am I asking? And so one part of that is choosing the right word to find the right answer. And you can ask it for synonyms. For example, if I'm writing a paper on college outreach to students with children, if I'm searching these words, maybe it'll say, hey, instead of college, you can search college, university, higher education. If I'm searching parents, maybe it'll say, try parents, mothers, fathers. So you get the idea. You can also ask it for different ways to reframe your research question. So you can say, this is the research question that I am working on. Can you ask it in 3 or 4 different ways? And that will also help you kind of look at it from different angles and decide how you're going to enter that subject. I want to show you a couple specific tools. It'll take me a second to get logged in here for each of them. So I'll talk about it first. The first one is elicit.com. And you ask it a research question, and it will provide you citations to articles that ask a similar question. And with a free account, you get a limited amount of credits. And I'll be honest, the credit system there is kind of vague, and I haven't really run to the end of my credits before, so I haven't actually given it any money, so I'm not sure when the money comes due. But for the casual researcher, I would say this does not replace my usual database searching. I would still go to the databases and search the way I usually do to start a project, but this has supplemented it and has helped it because I can also go in and ask it and it will help me see it a little bigger. So I'm going to go to Elicit and log in real quick. Okay, so here's one thing I asked it recently. In what ways are public libraries offering e-government resources? You don't need to spend a lot of time looking at this specific page, but you see it gave me a brief summary of the top 4 articles. Here's another one I looked at. In what ways are public libraries providing accessible spaces and services? I'm going to scroll down a little bit on this one because I got some better results here. So you see you have columns. The left side, it shows the paper, kind of a brief citation. It also offers a link to the PDF if it's available, if it's open source. And then it gives you like a 1-line, 2-line brief abstract summary. So this just lays it out a lot easier for me to just browse down. And I would not use this in place of using the databases and doing traditional research, but this is kind of a cool additional tool. Yeah, I have a question. Yes. So the question for those of you who can't hear, who aren't online, the question was, so the results here, they're not like ChatGPT where we have to wonder, is this real? Like this is real. These are indexed from databases that have, peer researched articles. I'm going to show you one other, Research Rabbit AI. And this one you can input journal articles. You can either put them in manually by like the title and the author, or you can put in a DOI number and it will recommend similar research. It's also handy because you can filter by date, by location. You can even drill in specifically in a certain author. So if you have a certain researcher whose work you're really following or you're interested in what they're doing, you can see what else they are writing. And most helpful, you can sync with Zotero. So if you're using Zotero to handle your citations, you can sync back and forth between them. And I'll open this real quick and show you. And Research Rabbit, I believe, is free. If there is a paid version, I have not needed it. So here's like a little project I'm working on looking at e-government and public libraries. So on the left side column, you see some articles that I have found and put in there. And then you see a second column just to the right that says similar work, earlier work, later work. So this author here, I've been reading a lot that he's written. So I click on this, it gives me a little abstract and it gives me similar work, also similar work from this author or suggested authors that they've been collaborating with. Let me find one that actually has a PDF attached. If the PDF is open source, it will just have a link right there. Well, I'm just going to click over here on similar work. And here it's generated more similar work and it's giving me like a networked visual. So I can sort it out by timeline. I like to do timeline. So I'm, at the newest research. You can see where a lot of things got written around like 2012, 2013. So this is a good tool to work on for topical research. And this is Research Rabbit. And one more thing at the bottom, you see sync to Zotero. If you use Zotero, they play well together. Okay, translating. Cynthia alluded to this a little bit. We know you have like Google Translate for translating, that exists, but this I feel goes a step further because not only can you translate, you can interact with it in several different languages. You can also switch back and forth between languages. I wanted to see just how far it would go, and it generally responds back to you in the language you ask it. But if you ask something in English and then ask it a follow-up question in Spanish, it'll respond in Spanish. And you could ask it a follow-up question in French, and it'll respond in French. Fun fact, it also can speak like Klingon and like fantasy languages. I thought that was kind of neat. I didn't really play with that too much. One cool tool is it can provide more regional specificity when you are getting translations than Google Translate does. So I'll show you a brief example of that using, I think, Google Gemini. I used this. Yeah. So for this one, I asked it to give me a translation in Spanish of the phrase, "It's too warm today to wear a winter coat." So first it gave me just a good standard translation. These words are all fine. If you were to say this to a Spanish speaker in pretty much any part of the world, you'd be like, okay, got it. It's too warm for the coat. But then I asked it, well, hang on, before I go there, you can see it even broke down like by phrase what it's saying. So that's kind of helpful. Like maybe it's a language you don't speak that well, just kind of get an idea of why it chose which word. So then I asked it more specifically, how would you say this in, Mexican Spanish? So here you see it gave me, the first part, it gave me a different verb phrase for what the weather's doing. It gave me a different verb for putting on a coat or wearing a coat. And again, this is still accurate. And then I asked it, how would an Argentinian person say this sentence? And here you have a different verb phrase for what the weather's doing, a different word for putting on the coat, and a completely different word for coat. So this is a cool tool. It also works within English. We speak a little differently in the US than they do in Australia or Nigeria. So if you wanted to give more regional specificity to what you're saying, this is a cool tool for it. And Cynthia mentioned earlier, also for tone. Sometimes I have like that very millennial female urge to be overly perky in work emails, or if I'm trying to write something professional. So sometimes I will run it through, I'll type something out and then I'll put it in there and say, can you make this sound more professional? Make this a more professional tone. Or maybe, can you make this sound more friendly? Especially if you're writing a difficult letter, where you want to make sure that you're coming off as the way you want to come off as. Yes. The question was pointing out that this had an audio feature. So I'm going to go back to it. I don't know if the audio is working here, but I'll pull it open. I'm pretty sure it has one. Yes. Let's see. I'm not sure. I haven't tried this before. Let's see. Yeah, that's all right. Yep. Okay. There's another tool I was really hoping to show you guys. For some reason, logging into this computer, it didn't really want to play ball with me, but I'm going to just show it to you, even though I can't show you the full example of it. There's a new tool that's being developed called by a company called Captions AI, and it's called LipDub. And they're developing a phone app right now. It's not released yet, but you can play with it on the web. You can tinker with it on the web. It costs money. You have to have a subscription to download these videos and use it. But the way it works is that you will record a video of yourself speaking in any language. They have several to choose from. And you upload it. I'll just talk about it. We're not going to mess with it right now. You upload the video and you tell it what language you're speaking in the video and what language you want it dubbed into. And it takes a matter of like 3 or 4 minutes at the most. It dubs the audio over you're speaking in the language you're speaking in. And it also does a running subtitle across the bottom. And my husband and I played with a lot, and between the two of us, we speak a few languages, and so we played with it between these languages, going back and forth with English, and it was super accurate. The only problems we ran into is like a couple times it got like homophones mixed up, but for the most part, it was very accurate and pretty useful. The only downside to it is it makes you sound a little bit like a robot, and sometimes it will assign you kind of an odd accent. Like one time it gave me a very British accent, like a very prim one. Only one time it made me sound like an American. It's made me sound Irish a few times. So that was kind of interesting. So kind of yes. I'm not sure. I know that it's still under development, so.
Oh, that's totally okay.
Yeah. I believe so, because once you get, I really wish I could log into this. Let me see if I can.
Just try anyway.
Okay, let me see. I have it saved under my my Teams or under Microsoft. I'll just add a new account here. It's okay. Talk amongst
But
yourselves
as you
for a
can
moment.
tell, I mean, the possibilities are truly endless, right? Anything you can think of, AI can help you with in any aspect.
Mm.
That's what I've experienced. And I really do try it in multiple things. Like I throw it in Bard, I throw it in Copilot. Some limitations for things
Oh
like
no.
meeting minutes.
Sorry, I pulled us out of PowerPoint. Sorry, give me a
That's
second,
okay.
guys.
Well, we can finish and
Oh,
go
here we
back.
go. We're here. Good. We're good again.
But we'll have time at the end if you want
Yeah,
to.
I will try to log in at the end if I can. Yeah. Okay, let's get back on here. All right, we're back on screen. Okay. Kind of similar to the translating. You can also use it to, oh, thank you. Go ahead, keep talking. You can also use it to translate recipes. For example, if you have a recipe that's in a different language or that uses different units of measurement than you're comfortable using, you can translate it into units and words you can use, and you can substitute certain ingredients. So for example, I have a delightful father-in-law who is always sending me recipes from Brazil, and I don't speak Portuguese. So after a lot of pain and suffering of trying to figure out what each word is, I realized that I can just dump the entire recipe into Gemini, and I'll ask it, I'm going to give you a recipe from Brazil. Please translate it into English, change the measurements to one I understand as an American, and substitute ingredients that I don't have in a typical American kitchen. So I just dumped the ingredients, and here it gave me instructions, ingredients. It was helpful. It translated Celsius into Fahrenheit, translated, grams into ounces. And then it says, if you don't have this seasoning blend, here's how you can make it. It intuited that I probably didn't know how to make cassava. So it says, how to keep an eye on it and make sure that it's working right. Similarly, you can also ask it for recipe advice. I inherited a pecan pie recipe from my late grandmother, and I made it exactly as she wrote it. I swear, like exactly as she wrote it. It was terrible. It was soup. And I was like, this is not how grandma made it. So I went to Google Bard at the time, now it's Gemini, and I told it, you are an expert baker, buttering it up ahead of time. And then I told it, I made a pecan pie. It was so runny, I couldn't eat it. So I'm going to give you the recipe, and I want you to give me ideas on how to fix it. So it started giving me ideas before I even gave it the recipe. But then I told it what I did. And so it said, your pie is runny because you're not baking it long enough. It says I need to put it in 10, 15 more minutes. It says I put too much syrup in. It says I should have crushed my pecans. So,
Did it work?
I haven't had this. I'm still too demoralized from the last time to try it again. We'll find out. Personas. We talked about this briefly earlier, but when you're using a persona, you can use it on any of these generative AI tools. You're essentially asking the AI to behave in a certain way. You can ask it to pretend that it's a person with a certain job or set of skills. You can ask it to pretend it's an expert, or you can even ask it to pretend to be a fictional or historical figure. I will say that with historical figures, it's generally not as accurate as you would like. For one reason, because it's programmed to be nice. And so if you have someone who's maybe negative, it's not going to be, I asked it one time, pretend that I'm in a parking dispute with my neighbor. How would Genghis Khan tell me to handle this? And I was hoping for something exciting. And it just gave me bland things about talk about it and see what the ordinances are in your town. It's like Genghis Khan wouldn't have gone this path, But when other historical figures, I've asked it, what would Napoleon Bonaparte think about modern French politics? And it had some pretty cool ideas. It did sound kind of like him. Not that I knew him personally, but you get the idea. So I'll show you a couple examples here, I think. The point of it is that when you tell it who it's pretending to be, you're telling it, I want you to consider this specific realm of knowledge when you answer my question. I want you to, only consider these things. You don't have to consider the full realm of everything that you've been trained on, just these specific things. One way you can use this is to tailor educational experiences and tools to different kinds of learners based on their interests or their skill sets. Example I put here, you are a 4th grade science teacher and an expert on Pokemon. So play a game with me, a student in your class, to teach me about the water cycle. So in this instance, you get, cool answers about water type Pokemon and evolutions, and it works it out. With these personas, you can also use a role play with it. You can initiate a role play by asking it to assign itself a persona and interact with us. This is used a lot in like marketing to create like fake focus groups. I'm working on it right now for a class that I'm gonna be teaching in some of the fall, maybe, on readers advisory in libraries. Oh no, I think this is 102 I'm using it for. But either way, in library classes, whether it's like LTA or MLS, there's almost always an assignment where you have to go to the library and like ask the librarian something. And it's kind of a joke among librarians that you always know when it's a library student asking a question, just the way they ask it, it's very artificial. So I have this assignment. I was trying to think of a way to make it less artificial and a little more accurate. So in this instance, we would tell, I've only really experimented with this on ChatGPT, so I'm not sure how it would work with Copilot or Gemini, but it's still in the works. I tell it, you are a library user who needs assistance from me, the librarian. So I want you to assign yourself these traits, but don't tell me what they are. And then I want you to ask me for help. So I want it to decide what age it is, what name it has, how educated it is, its gender, how friendly it is or isn't, how tech savvy it is, and what grade it's in or what it does for a job. And then I want it to ask me a question. So this is a good tool for students in this class, this like reference class, to get practice interacting with library users without having to find the library users, which is often the hard part. So you can think of ways that this could help you in your work. So self-care, a little pivot. You can provide fitness or exercise preferences or needs and ask for a personalized plan. You can also explain all the tasks or chores you need to accomplish today and ask it to break it down into a more manageable agenda. For example, you are a dietitian. So give me a list of foods that would be good for me to eat for breakfast after gallbladder surgery. Or you are a personal trainer. So help me create a training plan to prepare for my first 5K. And fun with kids. So I actually got into generative AI for the first time as a parent. Because when it first came out, I had at the time a 4-year-old who wanted an original bedtime story every night, an original bedtime story, not from a book, like from mom's mouth. And you only have so much creative left in you at the end of the night. My husband at the time was in grad school and had heard about this new thing, ChatGPT. And so I realized that at night he was reading stories from his phone because ChatGPT was giving the bedtime stories. So I'm just going to give you a little example of like one of these things. Now I should point out that ChatGPT is good for technical writing. It really struggles with the realm of human experience and feelings. So that's why it's good for like letter writing or copywriting or, rewriting APU paragraphs, things like that. But it's not going to be able to write necessarily a good essay about like a meaningful experience in your life. So when it comes to creative pursuits, it's kind of hit or miss. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. A lot of times the stories that I've asked it to give me are very formulaic. Just overly formulaic to the point that it's like hard to use. This one was actually surprisingly good. I saved this one. I said, tell me a bedtime story for a 6-year-old boy who's obsessed with clocks. And it's actually like a very touching, cute story. So your mileage may vary when it comes to asking it to be creative. We can also use it for jokes, poems, funny persona conversations with well-known characters. For example, have Pete the cat wish a child happy birthday, or that sort of thing. It's also good for trivia games for all ages. You're making, you can say, give me 20 questions about The Walking Dead, or give me 20 questions about Friends, or something with answers. So this is a good way for passing the time in waiting rooms, for one, but also if you need to create, party planning or team building exercises, that sort of thing. This can help you with that. So we specifically kept this kind of short because we wanted to give you time to tinker and share ideas of what you're working on, ask questions, point out something weird that happened while you're trying to do it. So if you want to go to Copilot, I would recommend using Copilot and use some of these things we've used. One weird thing that happened recently while I was trying to use it, I was trying to make meeting notes from a meeting, and I was using Copilot specifically because, we had like faculty names in it, and I wanted to make sure this stayed private and, get shared. And for whatever reason, Copilot started hallucinating that it was a certain person in the meeting. Like, not that it was an attendee, but it was like a specific attendee, and started like responding the way she would have. So that was kind of an odd one.
The person who in the meeting in Teams, because that will.
No, it was one of the people who's there. That was kind of bizarre. I haven't encountered that before. I was trying to make meetings before I left trying to make meeting minutes before I left the other day. And I finally just had to email Amy Walker and be like, I don't know what's going on. It's hallucinating. I'll try next week. So hop in, play around with it a little bit. Do you have any questions or yeah?
You mentioned early that some of them were really good for generating code.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you expand on which
Well,
particular-
when I was looking through all the different charts of comparisons, and I could send you some, there are some charts that are just for coders. That say what's best in Gemini, what's best in Copilot, what's best in ChatGPT. So that's one of the things that came up when I was researching for this.
Also, just the formatting on it's a little easier. Like I've used ChatGPT to generate CSV files, and I like that it, rather than dropping out like 30 feet of code into the chat box, it just gives you like a neat little box you can copy paste and take somewhere else. So
well, and remember, Copilot is GPT-4, which is the paid better version. So that's why I would say use Copilot for code.
Yeah.
Because it's the better version.
I think Gemini is more visual. But yeah, so Copilot's probably better for things that don't necessarily require being visualized.
And we didn't even touch on like images, that could be a whole nother talk.
Yeah.
On creating images. But, from the librarian standpoint, AI created images are copyright free, so you can use them no matter what. I don't know, it's the more you use it, the more you want to use it, I think.
Yeah,
right?
and that's why we intentionally put like some personal use stuff at the end, like with, exercise and food and like family stuff. So that way, as you're getting practice using it, you can think, oh, I can do this at work. Or when you encounter a problem in work of how can I do this more efficiently, you can think back on that.
Did you put some code in?
So I'm on my own account. It generated an example, but I literally.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, go ahead.
Conversation about academic writing and copyright. I mean, students or us writers. Is there any conversation around that yet?
There's a lot of conversation. I think we don't have the authority to give any official recommendation, but I believe it's in many committees, right? So.
Well, and there are ways to cite the use of generative AI in the different citation styles. So if you do use it for even like brainstorming or generating like, a portion of an article or something, there's a way to cite it at least. But it does, ask bigger questions like, what does it mean to create something or to be the creator? And so I don't know that that's all settled yet.
But I would say for a spring semester, how many of you guys have an AI statement in your syllabus? Right? So it's happening, right? So everybody's aware of it. Is there a general consensus? No. But that's, I would say on the syllabus level is how it's being addressed, or assignment level. Yes?
Pointed out one specific AI, which doesn't allow you to
The citations?
Gemini does.
You know,
Yeah.
they all do. Are you logged into Gemini? Well, here, and is at this point we should. What's our keyword?
Mint.
I was gonna say, is that the other one?
Yes, our keyword is mint.
Okay, think of Thin Mints, Girl Scout cookies. We are the mint
see.
room. Mint. Did you get
Oh,
that
yeah, on
online?
Gemini. Yeah.
Mint.
Mint. Okay.
Do they have this?
All right. Well, it was up a minute ago.
Sorry, I have
We
wandered
can
off.
pass it around.
You know, I'm gonna use Copilot.
Okay. For Copilot? I think you do have to sign in as yourself. You have to go to Copilot and log in with your JJC username and password to get into that Copilot GPT-4 enterprise mode. That's what I like to call it. It took me a little while. So if it's taking you a while, that's why we had to try. Yeah.
So let's do it now, correct? I don't know.
Yes, students have access to all of it. I don't know what the students know. Students only know,
I thought they were using people, they may be using that we are providing. Right?
anything they can think of, they can, so they have access to it too.
Let's see how it likes this.
All right, so she's using Copilot. All right, so see how it started with a source there? See the learn more? So it's from PLOS Science, Springer, AMHN, DOI.org. You can click on any of these links down there. Gemini has the same thing, where you can say like, where does this come from? I can't remember what the thing is.
So here, I just asked it for our academic articles about invasive species in the Great Lakes, and then it gave me a couple, and I asked it for APA citations, and it gave me some, so.
The ones that before, where she had the links to the actual articles was definitely real.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Here's
Like
one,
class one.
yeah. So yeah, I would definitely not take this at face value. You definitely look into it. And honestly, I would not use it to look for sources. You could make citations with it. You know, you can say like, this is my journal article, here's the authors, here's the date, here's the DOI. Can you give me a citation on this?
Yeah.
No. Legal stuff for the publication. Are you able to get to, I don't know, maybe more appropriate citations as opposed to social media? Like to narrow down or filter your citations?
I haven't tried it.
You haven't tried it?
I haven't tried it. The question was paralegal students using it to find like legal citations, and that they're not necessarily finding, appropriate citations. I don't know that I would trust this I don't think this is a good tool for finding citations. I think it's a good tool for writing citations. Like, I have this article and can you help me properly format a citation? But I don't know if I would use it for research, just because I don't think it fully understands
And
the appropriateness of certain sources or not.
And the other thing is, we have all these library databases, and within specific databases like JSTOR, they have their own AI within JSTOR that improves your search experience as well. So,
Also that generate sources or
right.
generate citations from the sources.
So not only, we showed you all these tools, but like all of our paid tools also are incorporating AI at different levels to improve the search experience. I haven't dug into Westlaw, but I would assume all companies are working on this. All right.
Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts?
Did you learn something today? Yeah?
One thing I do in class, because I teach coding. And I tell students, yeah, the AI can generate it for you, but you still have to look at it to make sure it's right, because you might be writing code for somebody's art machine or like
Yes.
the controls of an airplane or something.
Like code, yeah.
And you can't just rely.
Well, and
So it's pointed out that even though you use it to generate certain things, you always want to double check it because you don't know what this is going to be used for and how important it is. And that's true of all things. I would say a good point of reference is not to use AI, not to trust AI to do anything that you can't verify on your own or that you don't know how to do on your own. For example, like I don't speak any Japanese, so if I asked it to do a Japanese translation, I'd find someone who did speak Japanese to take a look at it and make sure I'm not totally off base. Anything else? I think we're good.
all right, thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Everybody sign that should have signed. Use the QR code. Needed attendance. All right, great. Have a great rest of your EduCon. Yay. Well said, guys. I learned something.